Ethan woke to iron biting his wrists. Darkness, complete, suffocating, the kind that presses against your eyeballs and makes you doubt you still have eyes at all. His heart hammered before his brain caught up. Cold sweat slicked his back. The air hung thick with dust, black mold, and something metallic, like sucking on old pennies or blood left too long in the sun. He tried to move. Rusted iron cuffs bit deeper into already raw flesh. Each tug sent pain screaming up his arms. The metal was ancient, flaking, sharp edges cutting into skin that felt like it had been rubbed raw for hours, days maybe. Warm blood trickled down his forearms. That, at least, felt real. He was sitting in something, a chair, massive, oak, the arms worn smooth from decades of use, but the wood beneath his thighs was damp. Not water, something thicker. As his eyes adjusted, shapes emerged from the dark. The grand foyer, his grandfather's Victorian mansion. Even in the dimness, he knew it. The high coffered ceiling rossed in shadow. The faint outline of the crystal chandelier swaying slightly overhead, though there was no breeze. The cracked black and white marble floor catching thin beams of moonlight from a broken shutter across the room. The antique grandfather clock stood against the far wall, his grandfather's pride, imported from Germany in 1887, always kept perfect time. Until now. The hands were frozen at 3:07, no ticking. Just silence so deep it felt alive. Ethan's throat closed. He tried to swallow and tasted copper. How the hell had he gotten here? The last clear memory was the drive, winding back roads outside Salem, Massachusetts, fog thick as smoke under his high beams. The sudden impulse. Just swing by the old place one last time before the realtor locked it down for good. He'd parked in the overgrown driveway, pushed through the rusted wrought iron gates, stepped onto the porch. The door had been unlocked. That should have been his first warning. He'd walked inside, pulled out his phone for the flashlight. Then, nothing. A gap in his memory, like someone had taken scissors to film. Now he sat shackled in his grandfather's favorite wingback chair, the one by the fireplace, the one where the old man used to read to him when he was small, before Mom stopped bringing him here, before the rumors started about what happened to people who stayed too long. A slow creak echoed from the staircase behind him. Footsteps, their feet on worn oak, one deliberate step, long silence, another. Ethan's whole body went rigid. It twisted as far as the chains allowed, shoulder joints screaming in protest. The metal was ancient, flaking, sharp edges cutting into skin that felt like it had been rubbed raw for hours, days maybe. Warm blood trickled down his forearms. That at least felt real. He was sitting in something. A chair, massive, oak, the arms worn smooth from decades of use, but the wood beneath his thighs was damp. Not water, something thicker. As his eyes adjusted, shapes emerged from the dark. The grand foyer, his grandfather's Victorian mansion. Even in the dimness, he knew it, the high coffin ceiling lost in shadow, the faint outline of the crystal chandelier swaying slightly overhead, though there was no breeze, the cracked black and white marble floor catching thin beams of moonlight from a broken shutter across the room. The antique grandfather clock stood against the far wall, his grandfather's pride, imported from Germany in 1887, always kept perfect time, until now. The hands were frozen at 3:07. No ticking, just silence so deep it felt alive. Ethan's throat closed. He tried to swallow and tasted copper. How the hell had he gotten here? The last clear memory was the drive, winding back roads outside Salem, Massachusetts, fog thick as smoke under his high beams. The sudden impulse, just swing by the old place one last time before the realtor locked it down for good. It parked in the overgrown driveway, pushed through the rusted wrought iron gates, stepped onto the porch. The door had been unlocked. That should have been his first warning. He'd walked inside, pulled out his phone for the flashlight. Then, nothing. A gap in his memory, like someone had taken scissors to film. Now he sat shackled in his grandfather's favorite wingback chair. The one by the fireplace, the one where the old man used to read to him when he was small, before Mom stopped bringing him here, before the rumors started about what happened to people who stayed too long. A slow creak echoed from the staircase behind him. Footsteps, bare feet on worn oak, one deliberate step, long silence, another. Ethan's whole body went rigid. It twisted as far as the chains allowed, shoulder joints screaming in protest. Shadows swallowed the stairs. The footsteps reached the bottom landing, stopped. A voice cut through the quiet, low, gravelly, achingly familiar. "You finally came back, kid." Ethan's stomach dropped into free fall. That was his grandfather's voice, the same faint New England drawl, the same quiet warmth he'd known since childhood. Not since the funeral 3 years ago. Heart attack, peaceful, they said. Ethan had stood at the graveside in October rain, watched the casket lower into earth, then driven straight back to Boston, back to his job, back to forgetting the promise he'd made. The figure stepped into a sliver of moonlight. It looked exactly like him. Faded flannel shirt, gray cardigan with the elbow patches, wire-rimmed glasses catching the light just so. But the stance was wrong, too rigid, like a puppet held by invisible strings, and the eyes gleamed unnaturally bright, wet and still, like glass marbles pushed into a taxidermied face. Ethan's mouth worked silently. When words finally came, they rasped like sandpaper on wood. "You're dead." The figure tilted its head. The movement was smooth, too smooth, boneless. A smile pulled at the lips, too wide, stretching oddly at the corners until it revealed more gum than any mouth should have. Some deaths don't die easy. Ethan yanked harder against the chains. Metal rattled, rust flaked. Fresh blood ran warm down his forearms, dripping onto armrests, onto old stains that looked exactly the same. How many others had sat here? The pain grounded him. Real. This was real. The figure advanced. Each step made the floorboards groan under impossible weight, as if something far heavier than an old man moved beneath that familiar skin. It stopped just beyond the moonlight, half its face in shadow. "You never kept your word," it said softly, almost sad. The hospital room flashed through Ethan's mind, beeping monitors, antiseptic smell, his grandfather's frail, liver-spotted hand gripping his with surprising strength. Don't sell the house, Ethan. Keep it in the family. Look after it like I did. Promise me." Ethan had nodded through tears. "I promise, Grandpa, I promise." He'd meant it in that moment. He'd meant it with all his heart. But after the funeral, the estate lawyer showed him the bills, the property taxes, the foundation cracking, the roof caving in. The cost of repairs would have bankrupted him. So he called the realtor, listed it, convinced himself the old man would have understood. Promises made to dying men carry weight in old houses like this. The figure reached out with one hand. Ethan flinched back, but there was nowhere to go. Icy fingers brushed his cheek. The touch seared like dry ice pressed to bare skin. A violent shiver.
Icy fingers brushed his cheek. The touch seared like dry ice pressed to bare skin. A violent shiver tore through him, teeth chattering, breath coming in visible puffs despite the stale warmth of the room. "You left her waiting, too," it murmured. Ethan frowned through the cold. "Who?" The figure turned its gaze toward the shadowed hallway leading deeper into the house, toward the old wing, the part that had been sealed off after Grandma died. A new sound rose from that darkness, faint at first. Scratching. Nails on plaster. Inside the walls. Slow scrape. Pause. Scrape. Moving upward. Across the ceiling, circling the chandelier. Ethan's breaths came faster, fogging in the sudden cold. The scratching stopped directly above him. Silence pressed in, thick enough to choke on. The figure leaned closer. Its breath grazed Ethan's ear, reeking of wet earth and faded pipe tobacco, and something underneath. Something rotten and sweet like meat left in summer sun. "She's been patient," it whispered. "Longer than I was." The scratching resumed, quicker now, frantic, descending, converging from every direction at once, walls, ceiling, floor, a symphony of scraping that made Ethan's skin crawl. He jerked violently against the chains. The chair rocked, one leg scraped across marble with a grating screech. The figure stepped back into shadow. Only its eyes remained visible, reflecting light that didn't exist. 2 ways out. Stay or pay up. The scratching intensified, metal hummed under strain. Then, snap. The right cuff broke. Ethan's hand flew free. He clawed at the left cuff with fingers slick with blood. Rust flaked under his nails. "Come on! Come on!" Snap. Both hands free. He shoved out of the chair. His legs were numb from hours. Days, perhaps, bound. He staggered, caught himself on the chair back. Footsteps began behind him. Steady, unhurried. Thud, thud, thud. Ethan stumbled toward the front doors. Heavy, oak, iron fixtures. The same doors he'd walked through. How long ago? He grabbed the handles, yanked. Locked. He pounded with both fists. The thuds echoed back empty, swallowed by the house. "Help! Someone! Help!" The footsteps stopped right behind him. He could feel it. A presence, a weight in the air. Ethan whirled. The figure had changed. Skin sagged more, hanging loose on the skull beneath. Eyes sunken deep into shadowed sockets. The mouth stretched wider, revealing rows of teeth. Too many teeth, yellowed and sharp, like something had replaced his grandfather's dentures with a sharp smile. "You can't outrun what's already in you." Ethan pressed back against the wood. "What do you want?" "What you owe." The floor cracked with a sound like gunshots. jagged lines spidered outward from the figure's feet. Pale, skeletal fingers pushed through marble like it was water, like it was rotting flesh. Thin fingers, blacked, cracked nails, strips of hanging skin. Another hand. Another. A head emerged slowly, stringy gray hair plastered to a skull, face hidden beneath the veil of it. The figure rose from the floor in segments, joints bending backward, bones popping audibly with each movement. Ethan recognized the faded floral dress, the thin gold wedding band still circling one skeletal finger. His grandmother. Gone 25 years, cancer that ate her alive over 3 years of agony. They'd scattered her ashes in Salem Harbor, said their goodbyes, moved forward. She should have stayed dead. She turned. Hair fell aside like a curtain. Empty sockets stared. Not empty. Full.
Writhing black beetles poured from the holes where her eyes should be, cascading down her sunken cheeks in a living waterfall. Some crawled into her grin, too wide, jaw unhinged, and vanished down her throat. Others skittered across the floor toward Ethan's feet. She opened her mouth. The screech that came out wasn't human. It was metal scraping bone. It was every nightmare sound compressed into one endless note that made Ethan's teeth ache and his vision blur. His legs gave out. He slid down the door, hands scrabbling uselessly at wood. The figure, wearing his grandfather's face, smiled wider. "She gave everything to keep this house standing," it said. "Gave her life, her soul, and I was too selfish to let her rest. I bound her here, used the old rites, made her part of the walls, so she'd never leave me." The grandmother thing advanced with jerking insect movements. "Now the house is hungry," grandfather continued, "and she feeds it. Has to. The hunger never stops." Ethan's hand touched something on the floor. Metal. Cold. The old brass key his grandfather always carried, the one for the study upstairs, the one he never let anyone else touch. Instinct kicked in. Run. Ethan scrambled to his feet and bolted, down the dark hallway, past oil portraits whose eyes definitely moved, following, tracking, past the dining room where the table was set for a meal that had been rotting for decades, up the narrow back stairs, dust choking him with every breath. Behind him, footsteps. 2 sets now, one shuffling and clicking, one steady and slow. They weren't rushing. They knew he couldn't leave. He burst into the study and slammed the door, dragged the heavy bookcase across it. Leather-bound volumes crashed to the floor. Dust exploded, thick enough to taste. He collapsed against the wall, gasping for air that felt too thin. Moonlight flooded through the tall window, brighter than it should be, bigger than it should be. Ethan glanced out. The moon hung too close to the earth, swollen, and for just a moment, just a split second, it had a face. Not a man in the moon, something else, something vast and patient and hungry. Something the house was feeding. He tore his gaze away before his mind could process what he'd seen. The study smelled of old leather, pipe smoke, and underneath, something rotten, something dead. On the desk, an open journal. Ethan's grandfather's precise handwriting covered the final pages. Ethan crawled closer on hands and knees, read. June 3rd, 1999. I found the ritual in the archives beneath the house. Old, older than the foundation, written in a language I had to teach myself to read, but I was desperate. She was dying. The cancer had spread to her lungs, her liver, her brain. The doctors gave her weeks. I couldn't let her go. I loved her too much. 53 years together. How do you say goodbye to half a century? The ritual required blood, hers and mine, and a promise. I promised a house, a soul, bound to it forever. I thought I was giving mine. June 10th, 1999. She died today, in my arms, at 3:07 in the morning. But she didn't leave. July 2nd, 1999. She screams every night. I think she's trying to tell me something, but I can't understand. The words are wrong, backward. I made a mistake. August 15th, 1999. The screaming stopped. That's worse. September 3rd, 1993. Found the realtor's body in the basement, or what was left of it. The house took him, fed on him. She helped. She had to. The house makes her. I counted the bones. Not all of them were his. October 12th, 1999. 17 now. I've stopped counting. Young couples touring the property. Contractors. A hiker who got lost. The mailman. She lures them in. The house swallows them. I bury what's left in the gardens. The roses bloom beautifully. November 1st, 1999. I tried to burn it down tonight. The fire wouldn't take. The house won't let me destroy it. Won't let me leave. Won't let me die. This is my punishment. December 25th, 2021. I'm dying. Finally. Real death this time. Heart failure. The doctors say weeks, maybe days. Ethan visited yesterday. Good kid. Looks like me at that age. He promised to keep the house. I saw it in his eyes. He meant it. But he won't. He'll try to sell it, and the house will call him back. I'm sorry, Ethan. I was weak. I loved her too much to let her rest. Now she hates what she's become, and the house is never satisfied. It'll take you just like it took the others. Maybe that's justice. I thought love would hold. I was wrong. Ethan's hands shook so hard the journal pages blurred. His grandfather wasn't a victim, he was a monster, and his grandmother was trapped, forced to kill, to feed the thing beneath this house. 17 people. 17! A soft knock sounded on the door. Gentle, patient, almost tender. His grandmother's voice filtered through the wood, soft, the one that used to read him bedtime stories when he couldn't sleep, when his parents fought too loud, when the world felt too big and scary. Ethan, honey, open up. It's cold out here. He clamped his hands over his ears. The knocking persisted, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. The voice shifted, became his grandfather's. You promised, kid. You gave your word. The room grew frigid. His breath fogged thick. Frost crept across the window. Moonlight flickered, impossible indoors. A presence stirred behind him. Every hair on his body stood up. Ethan turned slowly. The tall standing mirror across the room, the one his grandmother used to check her dresses, showed his reflection. But the reflection wasn't afraid. It stood calm, relaxed, smiling softly with an expression Ethan never worn. It lifted one hand, beckoned. Ethan opened his mouth. No sound came. His vocal cords had seized.
The reflection's smile widened. Its teeth were rotted, black at the roots. "You've been here before," it said in his voice. "You just don't remember yet." It pressed both hands against the glass from inside. The surface rippled like disturbed water. Ethan tried to back away, but his legs wouldn't obey. They moved forward on their own, one step, then another, dragging him toward the mirror. "No," the word came out strangled. "Yes," the reflection corrected gently. "This is where you belong. This is where you've always been." The glass stretched outward like a membrane, like skin. Cold fingers wrapped around Ethan's wrists, his own fingers, gray and stiff with a rigor mortis. He tried to scream, but his reflection's hand shot forward and clamped over his mouth from inside the mirror. The palm was ice cold and tasted of grave dirt and beetles and rot. It pulled. Ethan's face pressed against the glass. On the other side, his reflection's face pressed from within. Their noses touched through the barrier. Their lips almost met. The reflection whispered against the glass, "Welcome home." The mirror shattered. Ethan fell through, not into a room, but into freezing black water. He couldn't read, couldn't see, couldn't tell which way was up. Hands grabbed at him from below, dozens of hands, hundreds, pulling him deeper. He caught glimpses of faces in the dark, all wearing his face, all screaming silently, mouths wide, eyes bulging. Other Ethans, from other times, all trapped here. He wasn't the first. He'd never
been the first. Then, nothing. Ethan's eyes snapped open. He was lying on the gravel driveway, stones dug into his back. Early morning sun warmed his face, impossibly bright after the darkness. A car door slammed nearby. Footsteps approached. Sir? Sir, are you okay?" A woman's voice, professional, concerned. Relief crashed over him like a wave. He'd escaped. Somehow he'd gotten out. He was over. I was trapped inside. The woman's face came into focus, backlit by morning sun. Mid-40s, business suit, kind smile. The realtor. He recognized her from the emails. She smiled wider. Trapped? The house has been locked for 3 years, sir. No one's been inside since your grandfather's funeral. Ethan sat up too fast. His head spun. But I was just... The chains? My grandmother? The mirror? The realtor's smile didn't waver, didn't even flicker. You must have had a bad dream. Fell asleep in your car, maybe? She glanced at his vehicle, parked crooked across the drive. Come on, let's get you inside. I'll make coffee. You look exhausted. She offered her hand. Ethan took it. Her skin was ice cold. He looked down. Her wrist was ringed with deep ligature marks, old scars, white and raised like rope or chains. She noticed him staring. Her smile widened further. Too far. Don't worry, she said softly. The first few times are always the hardest. She pulled him to his feet with strength that shouldn't exist in a frame that small. Come on, everyone's waiting for you inside. The front door, locked just hours ago, swung open on its own, smooth, silent. Inside, in the shadows of the foyer, figures stood in perfect silence, dozens of them, all facing the door, all wearing his face. Different clothes, different eras, but the same face. His face, over and over and over. Some had rope burns on their necks. Some had wrists rubbed raw. Some were beetle black eyes. Some were just shadows. But all of them were him. The realtor's hand tightened on his wrist, her nails dug in. Time to come home, Ethan. She pulled him to his feet with strength that shouldn't exist in a frame that small. Come on, everyone's waiting for you inside. The front door, locked just hours ago, swung open on its own, smooth, silent. Inside, in the shadows of the foyer, figures stood in perfect silence.
Dozens of them, all facing the door, all wearing his face. Different clothes, different eras, but the same face. His face, over and over and over. Some had rope burns on their necks. Some had rests rubbed raw. Some were beetle black eyes. Some were just shadows. But all of them were him. The realtor's hand tightened on his wrist, her nails dug in. Time to come home, Ethan. She pulled him toward the door. He tried to resist, his heels dug furrows in the gravel. The figures inside stepped forward as one, hands reaching, mouths opening in silent welcome. The realtor leaned close. Her breath smelled like his grandmother's corpse. Your grandfather found the photos, you know, in the archives. You've been here before. 1997, 1983, 1791, 1958, all the way back to 1887 when the house was built. That's impossible, Ethan choked. I was born in 1995, this time. But the house doesn't care when you're born, only that you keep coming back. The face changes, the debt remains. His feet crossed the threshold. The doors slammed shut behind him. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was back in the chair in the foyer. Chains circled his wrists again, tighter this time, biting deeper. The grandfather clock read 3:07. The second hand, motionless. Moonlight filtered through the broken shutter. Same angle, same intensity. From the staircase, slow footsteps began descending. But this time, they were faster. Eager, and there were more of them. 2 sets, 5, 10, 20. All the versions of himself coming to welcome him home. Ethan opened his mouth to scream. His grandfather's voice came out. You finally came back, kid. He looked down at his hands on the armrests. They were transparent, fading. He was becoming a memory, a ghost, part of the house's collection. And somewhere, in another time, another version of now, a new Ethan was parking in the driveway, pushing through the gates, stepping inside. Someone who didn't remember this had happened before. Someone who thought he was the first. The footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. Ethan stopped struggling against the chains. There was no point. He'd learned that much. He'd been here before, would be here again. The only thing that changed was how long he learned it took to remember. He looked up at his grandfather stepping into the moonlight, at his grandmother rising from the floor, at all the other Ethans surrounding him. He smiled, waited, because eventually, everyone who breaks a promise ends up here. The house is patient, the house is hungry, and the house always collects. Even from you. Yes, you. Reading this now. Have you broken any promises lately? To the dying? To the dead? Check the address on your next piece of mail. Sometimes houses know where to find you. Sometimes they've been waiting longer than you've been alive. And sometimes, late at night, when you're almost asleep, you'll hear slow footsteps coming up your stairs.